Welcome back to another explainer. Today, we're jumping right into the mind of the legendary economist John Maynard Keynes to figure out exactly how he defined economic equilibrium. And look, if you're sitting there thinking equilibrium just means a perfectly happy, fully employed economy where everything is great, well, you are in for a huge surprise. His theory actually includes a pretty massive plot twist right at the end. So, let's just dive right into this.
Here is our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. Defining economic equilibrium, 2. The ADAS approach, 3. The inventory readjustment process, 4. The saving investment alternative, and finally 5. The underemployment twist.
All right, part 1, defining economic equilibrium. Let's start with the basic building blocks.
So what does this actually mean in a Keynesian universe? Put simply, an economy is perfectly balanced when absolutely everything consumers and firms plan to buy, which is our aggregate demand, equals exactly what firms are willing to produce, our aggregate supply. It's this rare moment of total synchronization in the market where planned spending and planned output are just in perfect harmony.
Now, to make this model work without giving ourselves a massive headache, we've got to lock down a few controlled assumptions. First, we're looking at a simplified two-sector model. That means just households and firms. We're completely ignoring government or foreign trade for now. We also assume that investment expenditure is autonomous, meaning it simply doesn't change based on income levels. Prices, they remain completely constant. We're also looking strictly at the short run. And finally, and honestly, this is absolutely crucial. Everything we discussed today regarding demand, supply, saving, and investment, it all refers to planned variables. We call this ex ante. We are not talking about what accidentally happens after the fact.
Moving right along to part 2, the ADAS approach.
Let's visualize exactly how this balance happens. Picture a perfectly straight 45-degree line shooting up from the corner. That right there represents our aggregate supply, or total output. Then you've got the other line, the aggregate demand curve, which is just consumption plus investment. Equilibrium is that specific destination point, marked E, where the desired level of spending perfectly crosses the total output line. This creates a situation known as effective demand, where aggregate demand becomes effective simply because it's exactly equal to aggregate supply.
And when we look at the actual numbers, it's pretty wild to see this dynamic playing out. Right at the income level of 400 crores, aggregate demand is exactly 400 crores and aggregate supply is exactly 400 crores. It's like a magnet. The economy is constantly trying to reach this specific destination of 400 crores because if you go any higher or any lower, the whole system falls out of sync and basically triggers a chain reaction to claw its way back to this very spot.
Which brings us to part 3, the inventory readjustment process.
So what actually happens mechanically when the economy wanders away from that perfect 400 crore destination? Say aggregate demand is suddenly greater than aggregate supply. Consumers and firms are basically trying to buy way more stuff than is currently being made. Think of planned inventory like the economy's thermostat. When demand runs too hot, planned inventory drops below desired levels because, well, stuff is just flying off the shelves faster than anyone anticipated. This drop is a signal. It triggers businesses to crank up production, which increases employment and output and drives income levels up until balance is finally restored.
This is a brilliant two-way adjustment mechanism. We just talked about the hot economy on the left side, but look at the right side. What if aggregate demand is less than aggregate supply? Consumers are buying way less than expected. Now, unsold goods are just piling up in the warehouse, creating an unwanted rise in inventory. To clear that out, firms are forced to slam the brakes on production. They cut back, which decreases employment and income, until we drift back down to our perfect equilibrium. The market is literally constantly self-correcting through its inventory.
Let's pivot a bit to part 4, the saving investment alternative.
Keynes realized there's actually a pretty neat mathematical shortcut to finding this balance. Because aggregate supply is made up of consumption plus savings, and aggregate demand is consumption plus investment, we can just set them equal to each other. When we do that, we can literally cancel out consumption from both sides. This reveals that equilibrium also exists precisely where planned saving equals planned investment.
You can clearly see this alternative approach mapped out here. Remember our assumption about autonomous investment? That makes the investment line perfectly flat. But the saving line slopes upward, because as people make more money, they naturally save more. Right at point E, that upward saving line perfectly intersects the flat investment line, and if you drop a line straight down from there, boom, it hits that exact same destination of 400 crores we found earlier. It's two paths to the exact same destination.
And the readjustment thermostat we talked about earlier, it works exactly the same way here. If planned saving is less than planned investment, it means households are saving less, meaning they're consuming way more than firms expected. As a result, planned inventory drops and firms have to boost output to catch up. They'll keep cranking out goods until saving rises to meet investment, bringing the whole shebang back into perfect balance.
All right, we have reached the climax of the theory. Part 5, the underemployment twist. I like to call this the Keynesian bombshell. See, before Keynes, classical thinkers just assumed a balanced economy meant everyone who wanted a job definitely had one. They thought equilibrium literally only happened at full employment. But Keynes, he completely shattered that worldview. He proved that the math, where demand equals supply, can balance perfectly even when vast resources and millions of workers are left sitting completely idle. Equilibrium absolutely does not guarantee full employment.
Comparing these two scenarios side by side really drives it home. On the left, we've got full employment equilibrium. The output level means everyone willing to work has a job. Awesome, right? But on the right side, look at point F. Actual aggregate demand has matched aggregate supply. We have a perfectly stable mathematical equilibrium, yet it's happening at an output level that is significantly lower than the actual capacity of the workforce. The economy is perfectly balanced, but people are still out of work. No jobs, but the math is happy.
So, I want to leave you with a fascinating and honestly slightly terrifying question to chew on. If an economy can achieve perfect mathematical balance while leaving millions unemployed, is equilibrium always a good thing? A perfectly stable market doesn't necessarily mean a thriving society. An economy can just sit lazily in underemployment equilibrium forever unless something forces aggregate demand to shift. And that right there is exactly why understanding these Keynesian mechanics is so incredibly vital for us today. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning the balance.